In this video, I want to talk about the difference between dependent and independent volume controls. So this is not so much a mod as it is a good piece of theory to have if you're building your own guitars or coming up with your own wiring diagrams. So this is only relevant to guitars that have two separate volume controls. So for example, a Les Paul, which has a separate volume control for the bridge and neck pickup. If you've played a modern Les Paul, you'll know that when the switch is in the middle position, both volume controls are being used. But if either one of them is on 0, it will cut the signal completely and you'll get no sound at all. These are dependent volume controls. Some guitars, particularly vintage guitars, have independent volume controls, meaning you can turn one all the way to 0 and still use the other one freely, which is great if you want a bit more freedom to blend the pickups together. Now, to understand why volume pots can be dependent or independent, you need to know what's going on inside of a pot. So this diagram shows the inner workings of a pot. You can see that lugs 1 and 3 are separated by a resistive surface, and then lug 2 is connected to a sweeper. That sweeper varies the resistance between the middle lug and the lug either side. So of course, if the sweeper is closer to one of them, the resistance will be less, and vice versa. So by changing that resistance, you're splitting your signal between the live wire and the ground wire of your jack lead. If it goes down the ground wire, then it's lost and never to be heard again, and the live wire is the part that you hear. The more that's sent to ground, the quieter the signal will be. For a dependent volume control, lugs 1 is connected to the pickup, lug 2 is connected to the output, and lug 3 is grounded, usually to the back of the pot. So the reason this is a dependent volume control is because when the pot is on 0, the output is directly connected to ground. So the signal will always try to take the shortest route to ground, which means that if they're connected together at any point in the circuit, all of the signal will be sent to ground and you won't hear anything at all, regardless of where the other volume pot is. To create an independent volume control, all you need to do is switch the wires from lug 1 and lug 2. This means that the pickup is now connected to the sweeper and the output and the ground will never be connected. If the pot is on 0, the pickup is grounded instead of the output. And you can use the other volume pot for the other pickup freely. There's a couple of reasons why this isn't used in modern guitars. The first being there is a much greater treble roll-off. So with all passive magnetic pickups, which is what most standard pickups are, as you roll down the volume, you lose some of the top end of your tone. With independent volume controls, that effect is more pronounced. The other reason is that when independent volume controls are both on 0, you're going to get a lot of hum and buzz. This is because the live wire is not grounded to anything, and so basically the signal has nowhere to go. It will sound just the same as if you pulled the jack out and just held it. This can be quite annoying. Despite these flaws, there are some times where you would want to use independent volume controls. Vintage guitars tended to use them quite a lot, so if you wanted a more authentic vintage feel, you could use this. And also if you were designing your own wiring system and wanted to have a separate volume control instead of a separate switch. For example, this is a Stratocaster I've been having some fun with. I've squeezed 2 extra pickups in the gaps and I wired them to their own 3-way switch and their own volume control. As they're essentially 2 separate circuits wired in parallel, I've included independent volume controls so that I can blend between the 2 circuits without having to drill a hole for a separate switch.